Hey guys, so today is a bit of a perfume video, and today we're going to be discussing a topic that I've raised recently in one of my other videos, and it has to do with perfumes and layering perfumes. Of course, you can layer whatever the heck you want, and you can layer and be creative with your fragrances. There are no rules that are actual rules. However, there are some things that are meant to make it a little bit easier for you to navigate layering, and many brands had started producing fragrances specifically targeted towards people who want to try layering. And today I want to give you sort of a shorthand list of the brands that I have tried layering perfumes from and that I can recommend or not recommend for layering. So let's start with Fresh. This is my most recent purchase and obsession. Fresh, I think, are great layering fragrances. There are very, very few fragrances in their line, but each one is kind of fun, and you can definitely mix them up between each other. There's some sweeter ones, there's some fresher ones, they're very floral ones. I think they have a total maybe of 3 fragrances only. It's kind of fun to add them to other things. So I found they're quite versatile and quite easy to deal with. Then we have Comptoir Sud Pacifique. This is a sort of a fun brand with quite a few choices, many discontinued unfortunately, but many still on the market and easy to find online. They're not very expensive at all, and you get decent quality for what you pay for the fragrances. They have a lot of sweeter scents, a lot of tropical scents, a lot of gourmands, and that is kind of where it's at with Comptoir Sud Pacifique. I think these perfumes are well suited to be bases in terms of your layering. I will go into a little bit more detail about layering in the future in terms of how to actually layer and how to achieve the optimal amount of success you can have with your layering. But really, you can layer fragrances on top of each other. You can layer fragrances on different body parts and have different effects. And generally, it usually turns out better if you start with a heavier, more dense fragrance, classically what is considered base notes, really, and then move on and layer on top of it or around it something a little bit more floral and flirty and light or citrusy or something to lighten the mood. So usually you start with base notes, kind of how you build up a fragrance, and then you move on to more effervescent notes. So Comptoir Sud Pacifique is where I would go for heavier fragrances, probably something vanilla based, although that is not difficult to find. There are lots of fragrances out there who are heavy on vanilla, but Comptoir Sud Pacifique can be definitely a place to start. In the same category, I would put La Vanilla. I think La Vanilla fragrances are actually quite decent quality for what they're offering. I think they're a fair price, and I think they are very, very cute. These are fragrances that you would pick up if you want something ultra simple or if you want to layer. And I think for layering, it can be very, very fun. Now, the caveat is you gotta love vanilla. That's just in the name of the brand already. So you have to enjoy vanilla. You have to be okay with just using vanilla-based stuff. But then again, most layering fragrances will include vanilla. The base fragrance would include vanilla because vanilla is just a non-objectionable scent that most people will gravitate towards. So La Vanilla fragrances are great base fragrances as well. I've used up in the last few months a full size of a La Vanilla perfume, so I've had plenty of time to play around with it. Mine was vanilla grapefruit or grapefruit vanilla, and I've really had quite good fun playing around with it. I would recommend La Vanilla because I think that their quality is pretty good. Next perfume line that I would recommend to check out is Clean. Now, Clean produce things that are very light. They do lots of light musks. They do some light musk floral sort of things. So this is really the mid to top layer of your fragrance if you're layering. It's something to lighten the mood, something to add a little bit of complexity. It is going to be quite light and airy, most of what they make. And of course that's okay because that again is in the namesake of the perfume house. So there I would look for top layers of your fragrance and they have quite nice musk-based scents. That's where I would go for that. Library of Fragrances and Commodity are the two places I would go to look for something interesting, perhaps intelligent smelling. And they make fantastic quality layering scents, and they really curate and edit their fragrance offerings to bring to the consumer the easiest, most beautiful, and most foolproof way to layer their fragrances. They sell them in little library books of samples so that you can play around and see what you like. I really like Commodity. I think they are, well, they're fairly new. They're not the newest of the fragrance houses, but they're reasonably new, and they are definitely killing it recently in terms of the quality of scents they come up with. Again, this is 1 to 2 noters, really nothing very complex, but those are good quality layering scents. And in Commodity, you'll find good quality weird layering scents. For instance, they have a book fragrance that I really like that smells like books. So you know, you get a little bit, this little bit extra, this little bit weirdness, this little bit of a cool thing that you can try, and maybe not necessarily everybody will have the mind to try. A super popular fragrance house that does a lot of layering fragrances that most people don't wear as layering fragrances is Jo Malone. Really, the philosophy behind the construction of their scent line has a lot to do with layering. So it's body care, it's candles, that's a single note scents. You can burn candles together, and their whole philosophy about their fragrances had to do with layering. Their fragrances are really decent quality, so a lot of the time, especially if it's a more concentrated formula, it's not necessary to layer. If you want to wear a more of a minimalistic smelling perfume, go for it. But I think Jo Malone fragrances are really actually quite decent layering pieces, and they just tend to work very well in any perfume wardrobe. I do find that they layer well. I don't have currently any in my collection, but I am very much looking forward to having a little bit more experience with Jo Malone. A fragrance house that I did have quite a bit of experience with is Atelier Cologne. I've had numerous samples of various fragrances. I've had full sizes from them, and I think they are a layering company as well. They do make fairly high quality, I hesitate to call them niche anymore, because anything that's in Sephora is way less niche, but they're a beautiful basic fragrance house that creates excellent quality basics. Again, basics. You can always wear them separately, of course. In fact, the perfume that I own right now, I barely ever layer Citron d'Érable by Atelier Cologne, but I think I should probably play around with it and layer it and then see how I feel about it once I've layered it. A very much a budget option for those of us who really love weird stuff is Demeter Fragrances. They actually have really fun, interesting layering scents. It's mostly 1 to 2 noters, what they have in their line, but it's really fun. They have rain perfume. They have perfume that smells like earth. You know, they just recreate scents and go ahead and just give them to you. Here you go, play around, do whatever you want with them. I think they have probably the widest fragrance library available, and you can pretty much find whatever you want in there. The quality is inferior to most things that I've tried, for sure. But if you are looking for weird scents, if you're looking to layer, play around, and not spend a fortune, really, their library of fragrances is really excellent. So Demeter Fragrances, I can totally recommend. I've played around with their stuff plenty. I didn't find any signature combinations, but I had really good fun playing with it. The last one that I want to mention is probably my least favorite one, and it is Philosophy. There was a time in my life when I was fond of the line, and I've used up a couple bottles of a couple of different fragrances from Philosophy, but I think they err on the boring side. They try to be a fragrance, but they're not really. Maybe to me, they're really a layering fragrance, and I think they're a little bit too simplistic and boring to sort of take seriously on their own. But I think layered, they really can play well with other fragrances. They barely ever, they are primarily focused on florals. There are usually a lot of florals in the Philosophy fragrances. They're usually light, white, you know, typical florals. Perfumes tend to be unobjectionable, very office safe, but I think layering them is the key. If you can find some interesting background scents to layer philosophy fragrances over, they really can shine in a totally different way for you. So this is kind of a shorthand list of the fragrances that I found to be really nice for layering, or that are obviously advertised and brought around as layering fragrances. I urge you to check out some of the lines in miniatures, because some of those lines will offer you a whole bunch of miniatures in a set, and you can really test out and layer and have fun without committing to a full bottle of perfume. But I also urge you to leave down below layering fragrances that you had found worked very well. Maybe some brands, maybe some specific fragrances from fragrance lines. What do you like to layer and with what? I'm sort of curious to know, and maybe I'm missing out on some really cool layering fragrances that I've never even heard about. So share with me, I've shared with you. Let's go play with some fragrances. See you guys later. Bye bye.